Hey, good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Live here from our rooms. Joey Rion, host, and Dave Bartlett, host. Pete Goslaw, host. My connection is unstable, it says here. And our special guest, Chris Rose, lacrosse coach from St. Lawrence Central. Everybody can still hear me okay? You guys hear me okay?
So far, so good. Yep.
That's terrible here. Sorry about that. I want to throw it over to Joey, and we'll start with the show.
Okay.
Max
All right.
headroom there.
This could be a crazy one here. So, Dave, be ready with lots of questions. All right.
All right.
Okay. All right, Mr. Rose. I'm going to say Mr. Rose first because I want to start out as, we've had plenty of ADs. We've had plenty of coaches. Obviously, you're a coach. We've had plenty of teachers and PE teachers, and we've had all their points of view on what's going on in the world right now, especially these last 3 months of school since the COVID crisis. But we haven't had a principal.
Well,
and I have a general.
Actually, we did have a principal my brother.
Oh, Russ, that's right. We did.
Yeah. But now he's a superintendent, so that's,
But we also had Russ on really early in this.
Yes, very early.
Really
very early.
So now we've got 3 months and the rest of the school year under our belt. What was life over the last 3 months for a
Well, I'll tell you what,
principal?
Joe, and I've said this, and some of the little things I've been doing for the kids in connection with the parents. Having an empty building, being there as a principal with no kids in it is not what I got into this for years ago, for sure. We know, I think when all this happened, as administrator, as a principal and as a coach, we thought maybe a couple weeks at best. What's this really going to do? And at the time, actually, I was coaching a 14U Bantam team with Mark Goodnow, the Steel, and we had made our way to Buffalo for the States. And when New York State Hockey decided they were going to cancel their States, I all of a sudden got thinking this could get really serious because you fellas know your hockey in the North Country and anywhere else. And if they're going to cancel big tournaments like that, somebody knew more than we did. And obviously we've been going through this, and we got the kids through. I feel terrible for the senior class, what they've had to go through, but these kids have been resilient and done a great job. And now our job, administration side and with our teachers is trying to figure out what in the world is September going to look like. And we're trying to, right now I know New York State is finally putting some committees together to try to talk about not just school, but athletics too. What we know in the North Country, athletics is a huge part of our schools and our culture. And we need to talk about that too, to give kids some hope that there's going to be something here for them to do. So we're in the process right now of waiting for some direction from New York State on the health and safety part of things, so we can make plans to get ready to either be at home learning, doing a 50-50 hybrid type model where kids might come every other day, or if all the kids are back. But I think we all know it's not going to be the same ever again. If it's all the kids back, it's going to be with new COVID-19 type distancing rules and, safety things that'll always be in place from here forward.
Yeah. And selfishly as the athletic director, obviously I'm concerned about my job, but I couldn't even imagine what principals and superintendents are going through trying to deal with a whole student body. I'm probably just going to be in charge of keeping some equipment clean and making sure our coaches are practicing social distancing. But I couldn't even imagine a classroom setting right now and what you guys are going to have to put up with and deal with. And what's really, we're getting close. You got to assume that we're going to have some guidelines, some set guidelines in a go situation pretty soon, because I find it hard to believe they're going to wait till like August 15th to let us know. You would think it would be pretty soon.
Well, but that's the thing, though. The way things have been going, it might be August 15th before you know.
Dave is right. And that's our worry, Dave, too, that people are going to hold on and hold on and hold on, waiting to see what other people are going to do or other states or whatever around the country. And, let's face it, we need to do what's best for the North Country right now because we're in a different situation than a lot of other, even in our own state. And we've got to have some guidance so we can be ready for kids. I mean, can you imagine if this is, Dave and Pete, August 15th, and they're telling us what we need to do as far as taking temperatures and how many kids can come back and be in a classroom at a time, let alone how we're going to do extracurricular stuff to keep them occupied with sports afterwards with the simple things as locker rooms to change in, and are you allowed to huddle, for goodness sakes?
Right.
Yeah. I think I'm still here, but anyway, a little internet's a little off and on tonight, but anyway, I think, and honestly, and I understand why they're a little delayed in making a decision, but I think there's somebody scared to make a decision because they don't know what the future is going to hold, and of course, and it's going to put our kids in all this right in the middle of it. So I understand. I can't believe what you guys are going through. It must be daily talks. You might get one day where you're probably feeling great about what email or discussions you have, and then 24 hours later, it's totally something different. Is that what you guys are experiencing?
You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely, that's what we're going through right now. And superintendents are trying to do the best they can too. As the leaders in each of our communities and schools. And Dave, if it was your brother, you said as a superintendent now what he's going through. It's just such added pressure to a job that's already got a bunch of pressure to it.
Okay, well, we got that out of the way. So
Yeah, that brought the show real down there. Now
All right.
depressed.
Now we're all sad. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
this is a sports talk show. So let's get back to sports.
Let's talk some sports.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously the depressing part is that we have a spring coach on, and spring coach that I know that was really looking forward to a really good season this year. He had the bulk of his team back from a very good team last year that lost in the sectional finals. And just never got a chance to be with him for 5 days, and that was it. So, I think you're the second or third spring coach that we've had on, Mr. Rose, but I know I'm sure it's been a tough 3 months, not only just for the kids, but for yourself, your coaching staff. The opportunity you missed out on. I was thinking this today when I was mowing the lawn. If we're lucky enough and we're back next year and we have a lacrosse season, you'll play your first home game in 3 seasons, because you weren't home last year because we were playing at SUNY Potsdam because our field was being redone. So I'll give you a chance to say what you want about what would have been probably a really good season. Go ahead.
Yeah, and first thing I want to say, and you probably don't have a lot of administrators on your show either that are coaches, I'm going to guess. And I need to thank St. Lawrence Central and the district and the community for letting me do this. This is my 15th year being a principal, and I was a teacher for 10 years before that at St. Lawrence, letting me continue to coach because, being a middle school principal and seeing those kids 5 through 8 and having an influence on them when they can still be molded is fantastic. But being able to have a connection to high school kids too through coaching just makes my job all around, everything I do, even more enjoyable. This year, like Joey said, I mean, what a tease. I mean, I'm struggling as much as the kids are because, guys, I'll be honest with you, my notebook from my past years, of course, you go through notes and think about what you want to do for the next day's practice based on the kids you have and things like that, sat in the same opening with the same bookmark in it with the pen in the same spot for the entire 3 months until last week when I finally decided I needed to close that and put that stuff away because I just did not want to believe that this was not going to happen. We had 5 days, like Joey said. We got to spend 2 days on the new turf at St. Lawrence Central, which we've played in dirt for years. Sand, Joey will tell you, for years. I mean, you guys know. You've been down there.
Oh, yeah.
We got 2 days under the turf, a Friday night with the lights on. The kids absolutely had a blast. In fact, we went over practice a half an hour, and the lights, of course, were on a timer, and Joey hadn't shown me yet how to turn the things back on. And anybody at St. Lawrence that knows me knows you shouldn't give me the key to turn anything back on because I'd be there all night. But the lights went out. The kids wanted to still play. It it was I've had a lot of great teams through the years, but it was the best 5 days in a row of practice we've ever had in my 25 years. And then this hit. So that's how I feel, Joey, about the season. 10 seniors, 8 returning seniors, 2 new seniors that came out, very athletic kids. So half my team was seniors. I mean, we were solid in goal, solid on D, solid at the midfield, solid at attack. A coach's dream, 4 fantastic assistant coaches that work with me. And, as bad as it was for the kids, I know exactly how they feel. It was just such a disappointment to not have that season and get out there and compete.
Yeah, and obviously, that goes for all our spring sports as well. I mean, it was a tough situation, and again, we want to talk some happy thoughts, but we know we couldn't not talk about the fact that we just missed out on a really good team, and I know you wanted to say some proper goodbyes, and you've done a great job with that, with how you've sent the kids off. So. I certainly, one of the things I wanted to talk to when it just came to the lacrosse side of things, you're our coordinator now for Section 10. Where do you see lacrosse going in the future? Because, Section 7 is starting to get some, the eastern side of the state, northeast side of the state starting to get some pull now with lacrosse. And Saranac Lake obviously has been with us for a while. Plattsburgh was entering year 2. Malone, which is Section 10, but they're considered over on the east side of the state, is on the verge of coming along as well. So where do you see that? Where do you see Section 10, Section 7 going with lacrosse?
Well, I think it's only, for people that are lacrosse fans, if you're an athletic fan, you want to see more teams. You want to see all sports grow. And we need that to happen because a lot of the Watertown teams that for years we went that way and played each of them once a year now go Syracuse way to get most of their non-league games and things. So we need, more teams other than just in Section 10. And it's a great sport to grow. And a lot of these schools that you're talking about have been doing it the right way. They've started youth programs. They're trying to get up through, so they're not starting brand new at varsity where kids, get frustrated. I think it's only got a ton of promise. And I look at some of those other schools in Section 7, and I know Dave and Pete know the size of some of those schools too, and how they don't have lacrosse already as an offering. I don't know, because it can offer so many things to such a variety of kids. I mean, really, in the game of lacrosse, there's a spot for every kind of kid to play somewhere if a coach is creative with them. So I'm looking forward to more Section 7 for sure.
Well, and really, the only 2 schools, and this is my opinion from an outsider's view, the only 2 schools that surprise me that don't have it over here in Section 10 are Malone and Gouverneur. Yep. Gouverneur would seem to me like they would be big enough to be able to field a lacrosse team. Norwood Norfolk, big baseball school, big track school, so I wouldn't see them. And then you're starting to get down into D schools where maybe they can't field both a baseball team and a lacrosse team. So Gouverneur and Malone seem to me like the only 2 in Section 10. But you're right, in Section 7, Beekmantown, Peru, all the schools around Sable Valley, all the schools directly around Plattsburgh that don't have teams yet. Saranac.
Yeah. And as much as they love their football and they love their contact sports and they're good at it, I can't believe someone hasn't piqued that interest around it. But I think it's coming. It's coming.
Well, I would assume with Plattsburgh getting it, they must be drawing in kids from those school districts, especially if they have a youth outside of school league going. They must be drawing kids in from those other school districts, I would assume, for anything that's outside of the school, just in the city of Plattsburgh.
Yeah, and they are. And their youth program the last few years is doing it the right way. I mean, they've got, they're decked right out in matching shorts and jerseys, and it's something that kids want to be a part of. And you're right, it's kids from all over, not just Plattsburgh. And they've done really well in the youth league in the last few years. So they will be a team, Plattsburgh, to be reckoned with within a year or 2. And schools around them hopefully will jump on the bandwagon here and we'll get going with more.
Well, if their schools don't offer it, don't they have the option, especially with so many schools being condensed right there in the Plattsburgh area, you'd think they'd be able to shuttle them over and play with a Plattsburgh team, which would make a really big, tough team.
And actually, right now, Pete, they do that. They have at least two
Okay.
other schools, I believe, Joe, if I remember right, that joined Plattsburgh. Just like Canton has a few. We have a merger with Brushton at St. Lawrence Central, and for a year or two, we had a kid or two that came over, but we haven't seen any kids from that area in the last couple of years from that school. But yeah, and I think, the way budgets may go too, not to get back to the administrative side of things, but let's face it, school budgets are going to change here with all the emergency COVID money that's been spent. And I think schools are going to have to get more creative with doing mergers and things to be able to support our kids with what they need without having to start brand new teams for at least a couple years till we're back on our feet again.
So I saw today. So what's non-contact box lacrosse going to look like?
I saw that post.
You saw that post, you guys? Yeah. I've got ideas for it. Okay. I've got ideas because I've got I put a little feeler up to see if families were even interested, and they are. And I've got some ways to do some social distancing and spray some dots on the rink as you come in so you're socially distanced and all that good stuff. But the non-contact, I'm assuming they mean by that, I'm assuming now, okay, body contact. A stick is 40 inches long plus your arms. I mean, that's going to come close to 6 feet distance.
Well, especially the defenders. I mean,
Sure, Dave. I mean, I don't want to walk in there with all these boys and say, "Hey, we're going to play, girls lacrosse rules where you can't touch each other and everything's a face guard," because that'll just turn into a nightmare. But we've got some ideas, for when, loose balls is my big thing with lacrosse because, everybody, the two or three closest
Diving
people
and
to the
grinding.
team are on it. They're too close. They're battling each other. That's when they're breathing the hardest. They're going to be spreading things. So in those situations, I think it's going to be a whistle or it's going to be an air horn in my hand situation where when you hear it, you immediately spread, and I'll call the color of the team that's the closest. They pick it up and we go again. And we'll let parents and things know ahead of time how we're going to do it. And, we'll, as I said, we'll build the plane as we're playing here a little bit as we're flying it and see how it turns out. But we've got to get some stuff for kids going this summer. They've been out too long.
With that non-contact with lacrosse, you're going to see a lot more shots getting off too because you don't have the defender right in your face all the time too. So
You're absolutely right.
your goalies are going to be a lot busier too. So.
Well, most lacrosse goalies anyway have a screw or two loose, Pete.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no doubt.
and most of them want a few more shots, so they'll, But I'm glad you actually said that because I was thinking about this today. A lot of times, one of the biggest things we have to work with kids in lacrosse is getting a stick in a lane when a shooter comes because they're so used to playing hips all the time and trying to get balance off that now we can shift our focus for a summer to trying to get sticks in lanes, to take some speed off a ball or change the trajectory of where the ball is going. And as coaches, we don't often spend a lot of time on that, but this could be a great summer for that.
It might be the way of the future. I hate hearing that stuff, and I hate hearing the new normal crap. But I mean, you never know. You might be starting something here. So you never know.
Yep. Yeah. All interesting things to think about for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I might have to get Coach Riom down there and help me out a little bit with that air horn. I mean, he's a great guy when it comes to a whistle and a horn. He's got a loud mouth. He'd be great down there.
Well, I had already, when I saw it, I'm like, if he pulls this off, I probably, as just the athletic director, I need to go watch and see, because it's probably a preview of it, not just your sport, all the sports, of certain things that we're going to have to do to try to be able to have a sport. I don't know how, and it'll be interesting to see, fans and all that stuff. I'm assuming you're not going to be able to allow fans. I can't imagine. That's probably the least of your concern right now.
It is right now, but I mean, if Pete's looking at the same thing that I saw, there's a regulation for about how many people can be there per kids or whatever.
Yeah.
We've already kind of looked at the bleachers a little bit about how we could sanction those off. There's 3 or 4 different entrances where I'm literally thinking if your last name is like A through N, you're going to enter at this end of the building. You're going to enter the rink at that end. You'll leave at that end. And, the rest on the other side of the rink, parents will park that way in the parking lot. It won't be a come in and hang out with your buddies. It'll be door locked until it's time to start. Everybody in the rink, fans get up there, and when you're done, everybody's out. You go get undressed at your car, everything else you need to do, and please leave the parking lot. I'll leave about a 15-minute gap for the next game to come in afterwards so that we're not having a bunch of people sitting around is kind of my initial thought. Joey, you come down and take notes and you help me fix how we can perfect it. So, because you're right, we're going to have to use it in other situations come fall.
Well, a guest that we had on earlier, a good friend of mine and former Scotty Sargent, basketball coach at OFA. So they've always had a basketball camp, and they got approval from Mr. Kendall to have a version of a basketball camp. Now it's going to be all individual skills because basketball is not an allowable sport right now. It's a high risk sport. So they if you're going to their basketball camp, you have to bring your own basketball. And it's going to be like 8 to 10 kids to a coach, and you have your own space, and you do it out about an hour and a half there. It's, it's going to be like a normal practice, about an hour and a half of individual skills. And at first, when I saw it, I said, oh, geez, somebody's going to be into this. They're going to want to play a little bit. But you know what? This is all we have to offer. Yeah. So I think you will see it fill up, and kids will go. The kids they're bored. They're ready to do something. So
yeah, it's over their parents.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but kind of on the same. I was thinking about this the other day. And when I saw your post about the non-contact thing, I'm thinking to myself, how do we not fill, because everybody goes off adrenaline during a game and they're hearing from the fans and stuff like that. However, if it ever comes to the point where the fans are not allowed in, this would be the perfect time for a school to set up cameras in a broadcast area and then automatically post it to the school website and do games. So it's opening up another avenue. But as ex-players that we are, we all drive off that rush that you hear from the crowd. So I just want to see what you guys would think about that.
Well, and Pete, what I'll say quick, and I'll let the other guys chime in, is I've already made a phone call because now a lot of the local rinks, if you've been in them, have My Hockey TV set up in them with the cameras in there. We've got the large TV at the Tri-Town rink right in the concession stand. Now, they shut it off right now through COVID, but I'm wondering if with a phone call to that company and they knew it would get used, if we couldn't turn that back on, grandparents, parents, whoever can watch the game going on from home. I hate to see that too, but hey, right now, people would take anything to watch a little sports, especially if it's a grandchild of their own kid, right?
My brother has 2 boys that are in travel hockey out in Boston, and a guy owns a company, and that's what he does. He does that My Hockey, and I can sit here. I watch my nephews play hockey. Yep. So, but there's no broadcast, but you can actually follow the game.
Right.
So right. I don't know if we're ever going to lean to that in the future, but it's something that might want to, it might evolve. I don't know.
Well, and you know what I think it'll do too, Pete, is for those families and those people that maybe have elderly parents or whatever, that they're more susceptible to this. This might be the avenue for them to see their grandkids and things for the next year or two until we have a vaccine, or until, we've got to come up with some ways to do that. And even, as an administration at school, we're still worried with some families even sending their kids back to school. We've got to get some surveys out here soon and trying to get a feel for what parents' expectations are with their kids. And it'll be the same thing for athletics. So there's a lot of great topics and a lot of great things to talk about moving forward here so we can get some athletics back.
I know Joey's father down in Florida listens to all our broadcasts when we're doing the games. And when I was doing North Country Community College games up there, we had people from all over the world, Australia and England, that were listening to the soccer games that we were broadcasting. So I know exactly how it is about parents and family members being long ways away and wanting to listen to games. So, I just thought I'd go off topic a little bit on
that. I think it's a great topic. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, no, I was just going to say, if Mr. Rose was at the last school board meeting, he will notice that there's a new camera that has been installed in the gym. And that's and I'm hopeful to get one for the turf field as well, but we went with this one right now just to test it out. In fact, tomorrow I'm going in to give it a test run, but it's called the Pixelot system, and it's much like what the hockey rink has, where it's just it follows the movement of the ball, and and people can watch it at home. They get a subscription and they can watch it from home. So, and we aren't the first ones to get this. And a lot of Section 10 schools are now going to have them for their gyms, and some already have them for their turf fields. I'm hopeful that that's my next purchase. If we can get to that point, get it for our turf field, because we have, 3 or 4 teams that play on the turf with soccer, lacrosse, and football. So I think it is the wave of the future, because there's just, especially in this situation now, as Mr. Rose said, I think you're just going to see it. Those older those older people that can't take that risk, but boy, they could sit at home and then watch the game now. Why wouldn't they? I guarantee you they will. So.
No. And it's not that I'm not in that age bracket just yet, but I'm going to spend this entire winter watching my 2 youngest sons play hockey on Hockey TV. That's the only way I'm going to get to see them. So I'm going to get a feel for what it's like myself too.
Well, and that was going to be, that's a good lead in, because that's where I was going next. So I'll give you a chance to talk a little bit about Carter and Drew and their careers, and what's going on with them, where they're going exactly. And a little bit, a chance for you, because you coached, I know you coach these kids, not just Carter and Drew, but a lot of them at the minor system as they moved up into our varsity team with Mickey Locke, and give you a chance, because 2 people that we haven't really touched on, Rico DiMatteo, who's also making the trips around, and Will Arquette as well. So I'll give you a chance to talk about all those guys.
Yeah, it's been. I've coached lacrosse for years through school, and I've coached minor hockey since 1988. There are over 30 years of every age level, boys, girls, you name it. I coached before I ever had my own first child. I coached while I had my own kids, and I'm still coaching after they're done with me. But it's been an amazing run, amazing ride to, and it helps as far as you want to make that connection while we're doing this hour here with school and outside of school. What a connection it is for me as a principal too, though, to have coached so many of those kids and get to know their families before they ever get to me in middle school is a huge help. As far as my own 2, my oldest son graduated from St. Lawrence Central, very, very proud of that. And then we had to make a tough decision with Drew and with Carter as to what to do, and had nothing to do with school wise. It had all to do with what was their dream. And I think as parents, all of us can say we want better for our kids than what we had, even though what my parents offered me was fantastic. I have no complaints. You want to be able to offer them more. And, when you sit down and realize you got a bunch of people in your ear telling you that if they stay here to continue to play hockey, chances of them reaching that goal and that dream they want will probably never happen. So you sit down with some young men and you make that decision. And, it just so happens it's not just the 2 of them, like Joe said. I mean, Rico DiMatteo grew up with both my boys. Will Arquette, who's committed to play at St. Lawrence University hockey here, probably be there next year. There's a good crew of them. There's a few others that are actually out playing junior A hockey right now around the country, from this age group that have kind of fed off each other. And, Drew is heading to Minnesota to St. Cloud to play for the Norsemen next year in the NAL. That league is definitely on and going, because he doesn't have to cross the border. He'll be a 20-year-old and then looking to see what he's going to do for college after that. And then my youngest son, Carter, is heading to Nanaimo out in the BC in Vancouver. So of course we're waiting, bated breath like we do with school announcements from the governor every week as to when the Canadian border is going to open up, to know if he's actually going to get there or not, to follow him for at least a couple of years out there, and then to see, whether he makes it to the USHL or what he does before he goes to Clarkson, where he committed this past spring. So really excited about all that. Very proud of their accomplishments and the things that they've done. So I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to talk about those guys, and extremely proud, obviously, of Rico DiMatteo heading to Texas to play in the NAL. He'll be playing out of, the nice warm state down there where his mom and dad will be watching on TV too. So proud of all those kids. Glad to have worked with a bunch of them. Had some great coaches coming up through that have helped me with that group of kids. And if I had to do it all over again, there's very little I'd probably change, to be honest with you.
We played with Rico's father in our golf team the other day, up at Joey's.
With Joe?
Yeah, interesting
Yeah.
man. Yeah, very interesting man. So, and he was very proud of his sons also. So, he
Yep.
highly of them. So,
Well, and you guys know, I mean, it's a big step for kids that age. I couldn't imagine being, when Drew went off at 17 and Carter went at 16 to prep school. I could remember being that age and think, no way I'd be heading across, leaving home and packing up and going. But when you have that family discussion and that's their dream and that's what they want to do, that wasn't a mom-dad decision, because those people that know me know that if I could keep my kids home 360 days of the year right here with me, I wouldn't let them go anywhere, to be honest with you. But that's what they wanted to do. And in order to try to get there so that someday you can say, I gave it all I had, I tried everything I could, then you got to do what you can for them. So we're having a heck of a journey with it, Julia and I.
We had Pete's cousin on, Justin Quenville, on one of our other shows, and that'd be a great show for you guys to watch, Chris. But and we've had Chris Bernard on before, and Chris was really the first one to really give me the indication. It never clicked with me that kids are leaving and they're going away for a couple of years and they're entering college as freshmen at 20 to 21, 22 years old. Hockey is really the only sport that's the avenue, really. Yep. Baseball can be, usually you go out of high school and you make a decision. Are you going to go to college or are you going to go play in the minor leagues? Mm-hmm. Football, you're going to college. If you want to play big time football, you're going to college. That's the only option you got. And basketball, pretty much you're going to college. You don't have, there isn't so hockey really it's in its own little world when it comes to the avenues that the kids have to take to be able to play college hockey.
Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of kids that want to do it. So the opportunities are not as many as what people think they are for eligible spots down the road. There's a lot of kids from not just the United States and Canada, all over the world, looking to play collegiate hockey, here in the United States. So it's been a character builder for both of them and for our family, no doubt about it.
Well, and there's a really only you only have Division I and Division III. In men's hockey, and I don't know how many Division III teams there are, but in Division I, there's not more than 70 teams in the nation, right? For men's hockey and D1 hockey.
62, I think. Now they just
62.
added one down in Long Island. Just New York just added one. Yeah, that's it.
So there's not a ton of places to go.
No.
So now, does Carter have a fallback plan if crossing the border isn't able to happen?
He was drafted in the USHL draft. We weren't expecting him to be drafted, but he was to the team. The Phantoms out of Ohio in the USHL have said that they would look to save a spot for him if something happens at the border for him to come play there. And Drew's team actually in St. Cloud has said the same thing. If something doesn't work out in Canada, that they would offer him a spot there. So we've got a couple of possible fallbacks, but there's a lot. I mean, I think right now Division I college hockey coaches are probably the most worried if this border doesn't open up, because like Clarkson University has 18 Canadians on their team. Yeah. Can you imagine if the border doesn't open up till January, what's going to happen here with major big time sports?
Yeah. No team.
They won't. Yeah, I was going to say they won't even have a season. Yeah.
No.
Pete, Dave, I'm hogging it all. You got anything, Corey?
No, I've been spouting off the mouth when I can. So but my internet's a little shady here, so I'm just glad I'm still here.
So Coach Rose, last night I had some 4 p.m. Afternoon Manhattans with the legendary Don Locke, and Coach Mahoney joined us, and we got talking. And I made a list, and I don't know if this list is right. And so we're going St. Lawrence Central. I've been accused of this being a St. Lawrence Central show, not by Pete and Dave, but other people.
More so just by yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good one, Dave.
So I made a list, and I'm like, so this year will be, if I'm lucky enough, would be my 15th year as the varsity head coach, and I was like, how many coaches have we had that last that long? And obviously you're one of them. And I was with another one last night, Jerry Mahoney. There's not many. Obviously Mickey Locke is lived the life of 3 coaches, the amount of time that he's done. But there's just not many that give that amount of time. And, in St. Lawrence Central right now, there's 3 of us, actually 4, because Tim Brown has probably been coaching girls varsity softball for at least 15 seasons. He started before I did.
Yep.
So I just St. Lawrence Central, talk about that when it comes to, you and I, we learned from some of the best that were before us, but to think that we're part of a list of coaches, my wife, Katie Brown, 20 years as a head coach. Not many do that anymore, stick around for that length of time. So, talk about where, you think that, where we all fall in that, because I take a lot of pride knowing that Jerry Mahoney and Joe Javenville and Tom Geegan and the guys that were ahead of us giving that amount of time, and we've done the same.
Yeah, and I think, the names you just mentioned are part of the reason why we do it, even if we didn't have them very long as coaches ourselves, the commitment that they gave. But I know, part of it for myself too, Joe, is my parents and the way, I was brought up. I watched, my dad was minor hockey president for years, couldn't skate much of a lick, never played the game himself. But when it comes to giving back and community and small towns and knowing that it takes, it takes a village, but what it does, it takes about 10 or 15 people that are really dedicated to get behind things for kids, and other people will follow and help out. So I think for me, a lot of it comes from my parents and what I watched them do and what things they were dedicated to in their lives. But as far as here, the other thing I notice about St. Lawrence Central, and I don't want to make it a St. Lawrence Central show over this, but I see it in lacrosse, is the amount of dedication that it takes from those coaches that are varsity coaches down into your youth programs. Unless you are a lucky man that nails somebody that'll take your youth program and do a fantastic job and run with it, which I'm sorry, it doesn't happen very often. You guys, I know Dave and Pete know what I'm talking about. You have to be involved in that. You have to dedicate your time. I remember before I had kids, I'd do my varsity practice, take a 15-minute water break, and then coach 2 youth lacrosse teams afterwards 3 nights a week. Just because I think it shows your parents, it shows the community, your dedication to it. They know the time you're giving. And to me, that ends up meaning they give you a lot less hard time through the years, because I think a lot of coaches leave coaching today because of the grief. I'm going to say it, the grief they get from parents or adults watching games. They get tired of it. They can't deal with it anymore. And I understand where they're coming from, but it's like at school, like we preach, with our teachers and administration, you've got to build a relationship with your kids and your families. And when you build that at a young age, they trust you. And I think that lends to, you look at Tim Brown. Tim Brown's involved in his youth. Joey's bouncing basketballs with kids the size of a basketball all the time, at a young age. Coach Locke, minor hockey, minor hockey is a whole different animal, you guys, in a lot of youth sports. That pretty much runs itself, but he's there to have his input, and things like that. Coach Mahoney was always involved at a young age. Tom Geegan was always involved at a young age. And part of that too comes with, you better have a spouse that understands that. Joey, yes. Your wife coached. My wife started the boys program at St. Lawrence Central. Put in years before that in the youth programs with boys and girls, summers running around from one field to the next, going to buy this, buy that, getting parents signed up, finding coaches, all that good stuff. You better find a spouse. And if you look at the people on your list, Joey, you're talking about, all have some pretty supportive people by their side that understand what we're doing and help us make that happen. So to me, that's why we have that kind of longevity.
Well, and I'm just assuming if I'm not lucky enough to have a basketball season, you're going to have to tell me how the hell Julia put up with you for 3 months, because I'm pretty sure Katie's not going to appreciate me being around the months of December, January, and February.
No, Joe, I did a lot of walking. You saw me. I put a lot of miles on that dog of ours. Got a lot of miles on him.
I want to add to that too, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because at one point I was coaching 5th and 6th modified, head coach of the JV at Salmon, and then I was assistant coach of the varsity.
Yeah.
And if the varsity, let's put it this way, the varsity coach, it's his program. I don't care what anybody says, all the way down. So if he doesn't have good people underneath him and he's not there to monitor him, there could be holes there that the kids aren't learning properly, and it's going to make it just that much tougher as they go up in ranks or up in age to catch up. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So
and I think too, to add to that, Joe, if you think about the coaches that stick around, you want to stick around, you want to be competitive. You don't want to have those 3-4 years like you're talking about, Pete, where there's holes and you're down in the cellar. Not that I've coached through those years, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
But I think if you look at the coaches that stick around longer, it's because year after year you're putting out a consistent product. But that comes from, Pete, you're absolutely right, a lot of good people below that. And what I love about, St. Lawrence Central is if I made a list like Joey did of the numbers of my players that come back after they graduate and leave here to come coach youth lacrosse for me, with one phone call, and all over the years, maybe one has had to tell me no, and it's because they had a job during that time or something. In the summer box program, the number of kids that want to come back because they know your system. I can say to them one time after watching a game, hey, this drill, or you remember what we used to do here for that? I only have to say it once, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. They know what Joey's talking about in relation to basketball, and they can go make it happen for us. And frankly, we're the ones that are getting the fruits of their labors as we get on in years, because they're doing a fantastic job with our youth kids. And I credit the community and our kids for that.
Yeah,
we see it all over the place. Dave and I are Salmon River boys, and we see it. It was good I haven't been in touch with a lot of them, but I mean, we have our lacrosse down there like you do. We have our hockey, and we have kids that play it all year round. They go over to Canada. A lot of them go over to Canada and play. I don't know how many of your kids travel over there or not. Do you have a lot of them that do go over there or not, or that play? Or
I don't. I have a few. I have one or two on our varsity program right now that do. Our kids tend to, after they leave high school, if they go on to play in college, they tend to go play, the box in Canada, toughen themselves up a little bit more, things like that. But I can attest all through the years, to Salmon River. I'll tell you what, they have a ton of people that come out to help with, in the hockey, lacrosse that I've observed, of course, year after year. I'll give a little shout out to my buddy Tim Cook, because he does a fantastic job down there and has for years in building the youth. He's another varsity coach that knows he's got to get involved with the youth. You've got to have some say in what's going on, getting families involved. And he's the kind of guy that he knows, if the list for minor hockey is done yesterday, he knows today which kids didn't sign up that need to. And he's either on the phone or he's paying a visit. And that's what you have to do to continue to build programs. And I know he's done that with his soccer, with the baseball as the years he's coached. Yep. There's a lot of guys like that down there at Salmon too that I've followed for years that do a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's our North Franklin program is what took off from many moons ago, and it's still, like you said, the numbers in soccer, lacrosse, and hockey are out of this world right now. Basketball, unfortunately, is going the other way. We don't get the numbers like we used to, I'm just saying. I just wanted to, state that, because it's like salmon people. We know exactly what you guys are going through as far as your sports over there. So,
and just to also reiterate what we're talking about with a different sport. I'm a basketball guy, and growing up, we had our North Franklin sports program for Biddy basketball, and it was really strong, and it showed my senior year. We were co-division champions with St. Lawrence Central. And then the youth program kind of fell off. And I think the basketball program at Salmon River suffered for a few years. So that just emphasizes what we're talking about as far as your varsity coach has to oversee the youth program just to make sure that that it stays strong and goes through the years.
Yeah, and I find, and I'm sure Joey does too, it amazes me, the kids that I haven't met yet because they're like on our first and second grade teams or haven't had them in school, that will come up to you after you go watch one of their games and just have this biggest smile on their face that you were there at the sideline for 10 minutes. You
Yeah.
know, maybe I was just there to help, collect something from a parent, or I was delivering a message, but all of a sudden you see them out and they're like, oh, it was great to see you there, coach, or their parents text you the next day and say, hey, thanks for coming to their game. And it makes you realize how important that is. If people are watching, they're not just sitting in a chair reading a book. They're paying attention to what's going on around them. And again, there's that building that relationship piece that anybody that coaches for a long time knows that's a big part of the secret.
Well, in my youth organization, I only coached at the 4th, 5th, the travel portion, because you really can't play basketball much before third grade at the earliest. So I only coached at the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade level while Toby was involved. But I have coached K through 3, which is just bring them in on an hour for a Saturday. And in this past year, I was planning on it being my last season. And now with all this going on, if we're lucky enough to be back, I'm going to come back because I miss it so much. I just want to, but that hour was always the most fun, to be around those little K through K1, 2, and 3rd graders. And like Chris today, then the next thing I know, I got somebody tugging on my shirt, comes over from the fans, from the stands to wish me luck before my game, and that's the coolest little thing. And so it's like he said, you drop that little, hey, the varsity coach cares so much. He's coaching kindergartners at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I've said for 10 years, yeah, I won't be your varsity coach. Well, guess what? I've ended up coaching a few of them now. I've been around longer than I thought. But you're right. It makes a great impression when your varsity coach is involved from top to bottom. Doesn't mean you have to coach them all, but make your presence known.
Yeah, and those kids will be more attentive, and they will drag their parents to one of your games. And and those little kids sit there and they're watching. They don't miss nothing, just because you showed up to one of their practices, because they look up to the coaches and the high school players. I mean, I don't know how many times we started off a practice just in 5th and 6th grade basketball, asking how many kids went to the game last night, and we talked about the first 15 minutes of practice about the game, and what we're going to do today. And it gets them enthused, saying, you know what, we're going to run a play what they played last night. And that gets them more in tune to the game. So I'm sure you guys see that all the time also.
Well, and I think it's a great character builder for varsity age kids too, because they go through that stage when they're little, and then they get to varsity and they realize just how much these younger kids do look up to them. I mean, I can't tell you over the years the number of kids I've been able to turn from those ones that are right on the fine line of I'm not sure which way they're going to go, just by introducing them or assigning them to helping a youth team, or I want you to go watch that kid. Here's his backstory. Here's what I need from you. Can you do it? And them, to look at you and go, really, you're asking me to? Yeah, I'm asking you to do this. Can you handle it? Yeah. And you just turn them loose and they go. And I wish I'd have known that back 25 years ago when I started coaching, but it's something you learn as you see the process through the years. And I'm sure Dave and Pete could both tell me a bunch of stories of situations you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, when you as a varsity player, when you go to a bitty basketball practice or something, and these kids have gone to the games, the varsity games, and they want your autograph,
They do. They do. Yeah.
Or you got that varsity player from Friday night, and now he's at my Saturday clinic.
Right.
And the kids are running over to him, tugging on him like he's LeBron James or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But he's going to do drills with us. I've seen it in Joey's program. He had that one kid, I can't remember his name, that you posted a couple years ago.
Matthew?
Anyway, huh?
Matthew Berg?
Yep. It pulls at your heartstrings too, because those kids, they're there and they want more, and they want what's that? Their head, their mind, their brain is a funnel at that point in their life, and they're looking for anything.
Very
So
impressionable.
yeah, very, very, yes. So
Impressionable, yeah.
anytime you can have a kid show up for practice next day, they're loving it.
It should be a requirement for all teams, to be honest with you. And I know a lot of coaches do it, but a lot don't either. Such a character builder for kids, you know, those varsity kids later on in their life when they become fathers, mothers, and all that good stuff. It's what makes me, you know, Joey talks about, well, he thinks he's going to be done, this and that. You know, I know right now there's better skilled people out there that could teach the game of lacrosse than me at the age I'm getting to be at. But I just love watching and still being able to mold some minds at all ages. It makes me want to come back every year.
Yeah, Joey, just to let you know, FYI, Joey's been saying that for about 3 years now. So I'm not even going to listen to it anymore. I go, yeah, okay. No.
All right, then I'm going to say it right now. I'm coming back.
Oh, okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay, all right. All
I
right.
mean, unless Randy Todd really wants the job, you know, then no, I plan on coming back.
no, he says.
He's staying.
last,
He's staying.
but-
He's not getting it out, Dave. And Pete, you're up in here. Let's write it down on paper right now, Joey. Sign something.
Well, you heard
I'll
it
be-
here first.
I do enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's the same way that Coach Rose enjoys it. It's always been about relationships for me, and you know, and I think it is for Coach Rose as well. And it shows because of the kids that turn into young men, that turn into dads, that come back and are still a part of St. Lawrence Central lacrosse. So I totally get that, and it is hard to leave. I mean, where am I going? What else am I going to do? What am I doing? And what am I going to do? Take up skiing in
Yeah,
December?
you'd be bored.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, the Riverview sees me enough as it is, so I don't think I need to be down there anymore. So
Hey, and Joe, you know, I mean, the number of guys that when I first started coaching, I was on my own. And I remember doing years of it where it was just me. There was nobody else. I was water boy. I was, you know, man, I was all of it. And now I've got, you know, between Chad St. Hilaire, Brian Bordlow, Brian Newtown, Nathan Cole, Brian LeBeer, all ex-players, all ex-SLC guys. Chad St. Hilaire has been with me forever. He's my one guy that helps keep my sanity every year because he takes that one, and each of you, Dave and Peter, are going to know this, and Joey, that one kid that just could get on your nerves every day just a little bit. Dad gets assigned him every year. It's kind of become a running joke. Dave, were you that guy that took that kid too?
No, I might have been that kid.
Oh, you might have been that kid. Well, I'll tell you what, if you ever see Chad St. Hilaire, you ask him who his assignments have been over the years, and he'll tell you who his one project was each year. And it's not that as the head coach you don't want them to be, but he's so good with that little one-on-one conversation you can have. And, you know, he's not an administrator. He's not a teacher. So he can sometimes say things in a different way quietly that I try to stay away from. And it just, you know, the knowledge that these other guys have brought back, they're just, it's amazing to see the kids that want to come back and help. And we're just in a great place right now. I love walking into a game with 5 assistant coaches. There's nothing better.
well, and you know, since you're here, I mean, I've done so many of these shows, and I don't know if I don't give him enough love. He deserves a ton of credit, and he works for both you and me, and that's Brian Bordlow. What he has done for both of our programs, the connection that he has with both your and my kids, he's one of our unsung heroes. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does for both you and I. And, you know, I know he's in our Hall of Fame at SLC for his athletic prowess, but, you know, if we could put him in again down the line for the amount of time that he gave this community and both of our programs when it came to coaching time, he could go in again. He's that important, and I know you'll say the same.
Absolutely. 100%.
Chris, we got to wind it down, but I'll tell you what, this has been an eye-opening. It was good to hear from you. And a lot of good stories tonight from administrative point of view to a coach's point of view, and talking about your kids. I've learned a lot, much more about you tonight than I have in the past, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. It's been fun to just sit and relax and talk about this kind of stuff. I don't get to do it enough.
You know,
I appreciate it. Thanks all 3 of you.
You know, more than welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, and I'll say this: the day that you and I decide to retire, Mr. Rose, I'll give you some golf lessons because there's some talent there. There's some ability there. I can fix you. I can't fix my own game anymore, but I can fix other people. So there's some talent there. He can hit the ball.
Oh, when that day comes, I'm going to take you up on that.
All right.
All right, I'll be there. I'll drive the cart. How's that?
Yeah, I'm not helping you, Pete. You
No,
can't be fixed.
I'm beyond. I'm bruised. Yeah. All right,
Thanks
guys.
again, guys.
All right, that's going to be it here for ESS Empire State Sports and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. With Joey Ream, Dave Bartlett, myself, and our special guest, Chris Rose. I want to thank everybody for watching. Let's be safe out there, and good night.